Have you ever just stopped and wondered how AI does what it does? You know, how it can write a perfect email, create a wild image out of thin air, or answer your weirdest questions. It honestly feels like something straight out of science fiction. But today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to break down how it all really works. And I promise, no complicated jargon. All right, let's get into it.
So if there's one single thing that makes AI completely different from all the tech that came before it, it's this. This is the big one. We've shifted from the old way, giving computers a really strict set of rules to follow, to a new way, letting them learn the rules for themselves, just by looking at tons and tons of data. And that, right there, is a total game changer.
To really unpack all this, we're going to go on a quick 6-part journey. We'll start with that big shift we just talked about. Then we'll clear up some confusing terms you hear all the time. We'll see how an AI is actually trained, peek inside its so-called brain, and then reveal the super simple trick behind chatbots. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the big takeaway. Okay, so first up, let's really dig into this core difference between old school programming and this whole new world of AI. It's fundamental.
Here's probably the best way to think about it. Traditional programming, it's like giving a computer a super detailed recipe. Every single step is spelled out perfectly. Do this, then do that. No exceptions. But AI? Well, AI is totally different. Instead of a recipe, you give it, say, 10,000 photos of cakes, and you just say, figure out what a cake is. It learns from all those examples, not from a list of instructions.
And what's really cool are the ripple effects of that change. A traditional program, think of like a simple calculator, is totally rigid. If you want it to do something new, a human being has to go in and manually rewrite the code. But an AI, like your email spam filter, is built to adapt. The more junk mail it sees, the better it gets at catching it, all by itself. All right, now that we've got that fundamental shift down, let's clear up those buzzwords that everyone loves to throw around. AI, machine learning, and deep learning. You hear them used all the time as if they're the same thing, but they're really not.
So at the very top, you've got artificial intelligence, or AI. This is the big idea, the grand vision. It's the whole field dedicated to this dream of creating machines that can do things that would normally require human intelligence.
So how do we actually do that? How do we make that dream happen? Well, that's where machine learning comes in. It's the actual method. It's a specific part of AI that lets computers learn from data without having to be programmed for every little thing. You could say it's the engine that makes the dream of AI actually work. And then you've got deep learning. Think of this as the supercharged next-level version of machine learning. It uses a special structure that's actually inspired by our own brains, and this lets it learn incredibly complicated patterns. This is what's powering all the most advanced AI tools we're seeing today. And this table just lays it all out perfectly. The best analogy is a set of Russian dolls, you know? AI is the biggest doll on the outside. You open it up, and inside you find machine learning. And you open that one up, and you find the smallest, most powerful part, deep learning. Each one is just a more specialized piece of the one before it. So, we get it. AI learns from data. But what does that training process actually look like? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like you're onboarding a new digital employee. I absolutely love this quote because it just makes it so relatable. You wouldn't just hire someone and throw them into the deep end on day one, right? No, you give them training manuals, you show them examples of what to do and what not to do, and you give them feedback. And believe it or not, that is almost exactly how we train an AI. And the process usually follows these 3 key steps. First, there's a training phase where you just feed it a mind-boggling amount of data. Then you validate it. You basically give it a pop quiz with some data it's never seen to check its work. And finally, you give it a final exam with totally new real-world data to see if it can actually make accurate predictions. So we've seen how it's trained, but what is the it we're talking about? What's actually going on inside the system? Well, that brings us to the structure that powers almost all modern AI, the neural network. So a neural network is basically a computer system that's designed to work a bit like our own brains. It's made up of all these interconnected digital neurons that pass signals back and forth. By processing information through different layers, these networks get really good at recognizing patterns. And hey, remember deep learning? While the deep part isn't as mysterious as it sounds, it simply means that its neural network has lots of these layers. And the more layers you have, the more complex the patterns the AI can learn. It's the difference between recognizing a circle and recognizing your best friend's face in a huge crowd. Okay, now for the part that really feels like magic. How in the world do chatbots like ChatGPT come up with such smart, human-like sentences? The secret is actually surprisingly simple. And for a lot of people, this is a real aha moment. Here it is. This is the crucial thing to understand. At their very core, these large language models, or LLMs, aren't really thinking. They are just incredibly sophisticated next word prediction machines. After being trained on basically the entire internet, they've become absolute masters at one simple task: guessing which word is most likely to come next. Let's use a super simple example. If you give an AI the beginning of a sentence, like "the cat sat on the," its entire job is just to figure out the most probable way to finish it. So just for a second, put yourself in the AI shoes. Based on every book, every article, every website you've ever read in your life, what is the most statistically likely word to pop up next? The AI does exactly what you just did, but it uses pure math. It calculates a probability score for every word it knows. In this case, Matt is by far the most likely candidate. So it adds that word, and then it immediately does the whole process again for the next word and the next and the next. That's the secret. It's not thinking or understanding, it's just chaining together thousands and thousands of these tiny little predictions to build words into sentences, sentences into paragraphs, and so on. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, so let's pull it all together. What's the single most important thing to remember about how all this AI stuff actually works? The big takeaway is that AI really isn't some kind of unknowable magic. It's just a set of tools that have some pretty fancy names. So when you hear someone say machine learning, you can just translate that in your head to it learns from examples. Computer vision, oh, that just means it recognizes things in photos. And natural language processing is just a fancy way of saying it's good at understanding what you type. Once you strip away the jargon, it all becomes a lot less intimidating. And that brings us to our last and maybe most important thought. If AI is, at its heart, just a very powerful pattern-finding machine, one that learns to predict the next thing based on everything we humans have fed it, then we have to ask a pretty serious question. What patterns are we actually teaching it? Because the data we choose to give it doesn't just shape the AI, it's ultimately going to shape our future.